to Disaster Dummies, the show where we review terrible disasters and talk about how it affects the environment.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jarvis. Today we're going to talk about Chernobyl, the giant radioactive explosion in Ukraine that made millions of people flee to different parts or even different countries. But what exactly is Chernobyl anyway?
Chernobyl is a massive explosion from a messed up check of the reactors at the power plant, but they didn't have any safety features installed.
First, we'll start with what caused it and what it is.
Chernobyl happened when a large power plant's graphite reactor core exploded due to workers testing if it would still cool down if the power went out, but they did not have any safety features installed, so it exploded. But what really went wrong? What did the workers do that caused the explosion? Because they would not make it explode on purpose, right?
No, they didn't do it on purpose. Well, that's what we think. We don't actually know that much about it. Soviet Union never let that much on it, except to evacuate the city and fix the problem.
So we don't actually know if they did it on purpose or not. I mean, it could even be an act of terrorism or just a careless act to not follow safety protocol.
Yeah, it could even just be an honest mistake or completely on purpose.
Some people have said that the workers were sleep deprived, but that is less likely than the other possibilities.
How did it affect the community, though? Didn't it make them sick or something?
Gave a lot of people radiation sicknesses, high anxiety levels, unexplained physical symptoms, thyroid cancer, and really bad health issues.
Wow, I don't want to go there for my vacation. Including probably dying, of course.
Well, what do the leftover radioactive rocks and clumps do? What about the leftover radioactive rocks and clumps? What did they do about them?
They sent in teams of robots to remove them, but they eventually broke down after exposure to too much radioactivity. So they sent in men, thousands, well, more like hundreds. And they eventually got really sick too, but a lot of it was taken out. But the radioactive clumps were still there, because, you can't just pick them up with your bare hands. So they built a giant, pretty much coffin in 1986, but even with its hard structural integrity, they built another one in 2006 just to be sure.
Well, that's a lot of safety precautions, only if they were that careful in the beginning.
But that makes me wonder, how can one reactor explosion be so big? Well, actually, I'm pretty sure it was like a chain reaction that exploded 3 others too, making a gaping hole in the side and eventually collapsing the building.
But
Another question, what about the sickness?
what do you mean?
Well, if so many people got sick, how would they get sick if the power plant is miles away and covered by a coffin?
The uranium, or whatever they were using, started to get picked up by strong breezes. And remember how Ukraine didn't let them much information about it? Apparently, they didn't even tell the townspeople about it until they started picking up high radiation signals. And then once everyone got sick and some died, they told the citizens to evacuate when already 500 people had radiation sickness.
Wow, if only Ukraine released the information sooner, they could have saved hundreds of people from sickness and even death.
There's still one thing that's been puzzling me. Why would they hold in information and kill or make thousands of people sick?
Maybe they thought it would make them seem weak or vulnerable to war, but most likely thought it would make them seem weak and not a habitable place, perfect to steal with war. But remember that not that much information was released over the situation, and many eyewitnesses are either sick or even dead. We don't even know if any of the workers survived. Yes, there's a rumor claiming they were sleep deprived, but we really don't know that much on the situation. There are 3 that survived, though.
Well, two.
What happened to the third one?
Sadly, in 2015, he died of heart disease, including having reported hallucinations and unexplained physical symptoms. But doctors still study how he survived with all the symptoms and health issues.
That's sad. Well, at least he lived many more years before his death.
I wonder what their names were.
Well, I actually have them down in my notes right here. Alexei, I think that's how you pronounce it, Anenko, Valery Bespalov, and Boris Baranov. 4 people. Alright, let's just move on to the next category. How it affected the environment and state.
I know that now there are radioactive animals around Chernobyl, and it cost the country an estimated 700 billion US dollars and the lives of 500,000 workers that were in Chernobyl, and it gave people acute radiation sickness.
I've also heard that it created a bit of acid rain and more pollution, which eventually made the buildings crumble, and many just. I've also heard that it can affect some buildings and cause some acid rain, which caused some buildings to collapse and statues to smooth out. And today, I still hear that there are record and repeats of there has been a radioactive bad thing happen playing on the radios and town announcement systems to this day. And I mean, to be honest, that just covered it. That covers about all of it.
Really? Well, I guess that's over.
On to the next category.
But that was the last one.
Really?
Let's just throw in some fun facts about it.
Okay. Fact number 1. Some old people still live there today.
Fact number 2, the 2 surviving workers still live today.
Fact number 3. Exactly the date that Chernobyl disaster began was on the 26th of April, 1986.
Fact number 4, the Chernobyl disaster began with the explosion of reactor number 4 in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the city of Pripyat, if that's how you say it, in northern Ukraine, near its Belarus border in the Soviet Union.
Fact number 5. Back then, it actually what happened in the Soviet Union, but now Chernobyl is in Ukraine when it originally happened in the Soviet Union.
Fact number 6. When the workers were attempting to shut down the reactor, it resulted in a dramatic power surge, and the reactor's components ruptured, and it lost coolants, and the resulting steam and explosion and meltdown destroyed the containment building, followed by a reactor core fire that spread radioactive contaminants across the USSR.
Huh, well, that's how it happened. And fact number 7. Once the 36 hours of not telling anyone was over, a 10-kilometer or 6.2 miles was made into like a zone where nobody was allowed to go. Even though, again, some older people still live there to this day.
The exclusion zone was later expanded to 30 kilometers, or 19 miles, resulting in the evacuation of approximately 68,000 more people.
Wow. Sheesh. That is a lot of people. I mean, I get because radiation spreads pretty far. Fact number 9. After the following explosion, which killed 2 engineers and severely burned 2 others, an emergency operation began to put out the fires and stabilize the reactor. And what they used to put out the fire was mixed with sand.
The radiation spread so far, they even detected high levels of radiation all the way in Sweden. I didn't know it could even spread that far.
And for the final fact, potatoes grow on trees.
Well, that's it for this edition of Disaster Dummies.
Tune in next time for the Great England fog and air pollution.
Goodbye.
Bye.